Hello and welcome to the Radical Podcast, inspired by the essence of the word radical, proceeding from the root. We explore the roots of metaphysical wisdom.
This season is all about divination, tarot, and the power held within our intuition. This is The Radical with Nicole and Christina, the two metaphysical girls in the material world.
Hello, welcome to the Radical Podcast. This is Christina.
And I'm Nicole.
This episode, we're talking about the tarot court cards. The 4 cards at the end of the suit's journeys. I'm going to go through my list. I have so many lists on our shared notes page. I told Nicole I'm not going to talk about all the lists that are there because I've got a lot of lists. I started organizing and reorganizing. Oh, I had so much fun learning all these correspondences and attributes and all this information about these fascinating court cards. Oh.
And when we planned this season, we wrote court cards and seasonal alignment as it pertains to the Wheel of the Year. So I have some tables that I made.
I have lists, but Nicole has at least 2 tables, if not more, on our shared notes page. Apparently, I don't even know how many pages our notes page is. 13. 13 pages. We'll see how quick or how slow we get through all this information. I'm going to start right away with the name of the cards. Like I said, we're talking about in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, tarot deck, is the King, Queen, Knight, and Page. Other decks, my Wild Unknown deck calls this the family and their mother, father, son, daughter. My other deck, Sacred She, doesn't have those 4 titles. They are just cards 11, 12, 13, and 14. And that would be the Page is 11, the Knight is 12, the Queen is 13, and the King is 14. Depending on what kind of decks you have, listeners, you may see a different titles for the family for those 4, or you might see them being enumerated and then just the energies of the cards being depicted in the illustration and in the guidebook. The elements, modality, and polarity of these cards. The King, the element of the King is air. The modality is fixed, and the polarity is yang. The Queen is water, cardinal, and yin. The Knight is fire, mutable, and yang. And the Page is earth, represents the seasons as a whole, and is yin. Air and fire are yang. Water and earth are yin. Regardless if it's a king, whatever the title is of that 14th card, whether it's a king, a father, whether it's just number 14, that air element would give it that yang polarity. Now it's time for the second list. We're going to continue to build on what we have. It's the zodiac season, the tarot elements, mode, and element. Starting with, we're going to start at the beginning of the zodiac year, which is spring, and that is the Page of Swords. That is the tarot card for that season. And that is the Page is earth in the suit of air. And then we have, starting with Aries, this is the Queen of Wands. The Queen is water in the suit of fire for Aries. See how we're getting different layers of the elements? And then, not to skip ahead to my list after this list, but I'm going to say this while we're talking about Aries and we're talking about the beginning of the year. We have Aries with the Queen of Wands, Queen, water, Wands, fire. water in the suit of fire. But because it's Aries in the first house, it's the Queen of Wands as cardinal fire, because the queens are cardinal. Okay, that's a lot to put together, but we post and share this information. And I basically just wrote all this down inside one of my guidebooks. And I'm surprised Nicole hasn't written on her tarot cards yet, because you put notes on your tarot cards. But that's another way that you could remember this too, listeners, is get your like learning deck and write this information in the border of your cards or inside your guidebook. Okay, so that was just Aries. I'm going to go through the others a little bit quicker, but then you can kind of start to see the pattern, and then you can start to like draw the correspondences and the attributes yourself. Aries starts, the next zodiac sign is Taurus, and this is the King of Pentacles. King is air, Pentacles is earth, so this is air in the suit of earth. But then if you remember, again, jumping back to the house, the second house is also the King of Pentacles. And this is fixed earth, because the kings are fixed. Gemini comes next. This is the Knight of Swords. The Knight is fire, swords is air. Fire in the suit of air. Third house, mutable air for the Knight of Swords. And that's the spring. That is our spring family. The Queen of Wands, the King of Pentacles, and the Knight of Swords. Representing elements and representing different modalities and different polarities, but it's the flow of our year. Going into summer, I'm going to go a little quicker. Going into summer is the Page of Wands, earth in the suit of fire. Okay, Cancer, Queen of Cups. This is the first time we have water in the suit of water. That, to me, maybe that's why Cancer season feels the way it does to me. That's a lot of water energy. And then we go into the fourth house, Queen of Cups. That's the moon, and that's cardinal water on top of everything. That is a highly, for me, emotionally charged time and placement and energy. Leo, from my friend Nicole, King of Wands, air, because it's a king in the suit of fire. And the Leo in the fifth house, King of Wands, kings are fixed, wands are fire, fixed fire. See, it's it coming together? And then to close out our summer season, Virgo, Knight of Pentacles, fire in the suit of earth. And because that's the end of the season, the sixth house, the Knight of Pentacles, that's mutable earth, because Virgo is earth. Autumn, Page of Cups, earth in the suit of water. Libra, Queen of Swords, water in the suit of air. And then for that seventh house, Queen of Swords, that's cardinal air. Scorpio season, King of Cups, air in the suit of water. And then that Scorpio house, eighth house, fixed water, because it's the King of Cups. And then Sagittarius, our next fire, our next element on element. Sagittarius is the Knight of Wands, and that's fire in the suit of fire. That's a Sagittarius, the end of autumn. And that is the ninth house, Knight of Wands, mutable fire. And that's Jupiter too. So that's another, can be feel very fiery, heavily, elementally charged time of year or tarot card. And then final season, winter. We have the Page of Pentacles. And winter, it might not be my favorite physical time of year, but it is a time of year when I seem to get a lot done, and you kind of turn your awareness inward. It makes sense that the Page of Pentacles ruling over this time is earth in the suit of earth. And then on top of that, the cardinal zodiac sign is Capricorn, which is earth. That's the Queen of Pentacles, water in the suit of earth. Capricorn, 10th house, ruled by Saturn, cardinal earth. And then we get Aquarius, King of Swords. And you know what that is? Air in the suit of air. We have all this earthiness, and then right there in the middle of winter, we get Aquarius, air in air. And that's all like, for me, that's all like cerebral activity, right? Our mind and our mental workings. And then to close out the zodiac year, Pisces, where we are right now as we're recording this. Pisces is the Knight of Cups, and the Knights are fire in the suit of water, cups. And that 12th house, mutable water, Knight of Cups, Jupiter, and modern day Neptune. I say modern. It was a couple hundred years ago, but it's modern. But that's the zodiac year. You can see that we flow with the energies of the seasons, and we flow with the energies of the elements. And we have some points where the elements get a very strong placing, like Aquarius, King of Swords, air in the suit of air. But we also have a lot of layering and balancing of the elements, and the two yin elements coming together and the two yang elements coming together. And it's interesting to see that affects us and our abilities to think and to plan and to do and to travel. And it's an interesting way to look at how these court cards go along with our zodiac year. Moving on to the Tree of Life correspondences, I talked about the two yin and the two yang, and this is another place where that grouping is used. I found two schools of thought or two interpretations of this, where the page and the queen were switched and the knight and the kings were switched. But generally, if the king and the queen are at the 2 and the 3 spheres, then the knights and the page, let me say it this way. If the king and the queens are at the top of the tree of life, the knights and the pages are at the bottom of the tree of life. But also, they sometimes are reversed, where the page and the knight are at the top and the king and the queen are at the bottom. Those are the two that I saw. Generally, the yin, the pages and the queens, are either sphere 3 or sphere 10. Sphere 3 is Binah, ruled by Saturn. And this is generally what's called, and I've seen this a few times, called the feminine principle sphere of understanding, intelligence, and nurturing the seed of wisdom. The other yin placement is the sphere 10, Malkuth, and this is earth. This is kingdom, the emotional vessel for action, the root, and the manifestation. It's sometimes called also the physical world. Often, generally the pages are there because of that connection to earth. Then the yang placements for the knights and the kings, associated with the spheres of 2 and 6. Sphere 2, Shakma, which is generally considered the masculine principle, ruled by Neptune, and its wisdom, inspiration, and unbound creative energy. And then sphere 6, Tipereth, ruled by the sun, and that's beauty, harmony, glory, and the central point of the tree of life, balancing love and judgment. Like I said, generally, if the queen is at 3, the king is at 2, and then the knight is at 6 and the page is at 10. If it's the other way around, the page is at 3, the knight is at 2, the king is at 6, and the queen is at 10. And I was putting my notes together, and I saw like 2 places where it had it one way, and then I saw one resource that had it the other way. And then I did a little digging, and I was like, oh, it's because of the energies of the cards, and depending on what the point of view is of the interpreter of the information. I'm going to just touch on chakra energy because we are going to be doing a podcast on each of the courts by suit in this coming year. We're going to do the Court of Wands and the court. We'll talk more about chakras. But generally, the kings as swords, air, the mind, intellect, I immediately went to the third eye, putting information together, but also the throat, because it has a lot to do with communication as well. Queens, cups, suit of cups, water, and that is for me creative force. I was drawn to the sacral chakra and the heart chakra, anahata. That sacral chakra just being our seat of creativity, of nurturing, of developing, of growing. And that's, to me, is that queen energy. And then for knights, for wands and fire, this is our soul's purpose, our internal fire, solar plexus. But then I was also drawn to the throat, because when you have that heat being built in your solar plexus and then it gets pushed up through the heart, through the throat, that's sometimes where we can put more life and determination into our goals. And then for pages, that pentacles and earthy energy, and this is our body, our physical world, and that is that root chakra that connects us so deeply to our earth and the heart. And then I didn't realize, so after I did my notes, I had the page and the queen heart, and I had the king's and the knight's throat. Those are the two that they shared for. And then I was like, oh, do I see the throat as like that projective, that yang energy? And then I see the heart as sort of that nurturing, as sort of that receiving yin energy. But we'll talk more deeply about chakras when we get into a deeper breakdown of the individual cards. But that's kind of a good overview to get thinking about chakra energy and the court cards. Okay, I'm going to talk very briefly about directions. Kings are swords, and that direction associated with that is east for air. That is also tied to the springtime. The south is fire, wands, and knights, and that is Leo. Oh, back that up. East is Aquarius. That is the fixed sign of air. When we see our tarot cards that has the 4 creatures in the 4 corners representing the 4 directions, Aquarius is the angel or the little kid. And then the south is the lion for Leo, wands and knights. Okay. And then the west, cups, queens, water, and this is the Scorpio, which is represented by the eagle. And north, pentacles, pages, the earth, and this is Taurus, is that fixed sign, and that is the cow, or the horned cow. Just another layer of correspondences. We'll touch briefly on symbology. We're not doing a full card breakdown in this podcast, but I want to talk about some of the main symbols for each of them based on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck and some of the other main symbols of the other decks that we would see. That kings generally are sitting in a throne or on some kind of seat to represent the embodiment of the elemental power that is represented by that card. The Rider-Waite-Smith deck, it's usually a throne decorated by symbols to represent the element. I'm sharing the court cards from the Secrets of the Witch's Garden. And in that one, the kings are sitting in various objects to represent a throne that are made out of different things, like a tree stump. One is like water, but we'll get to that. But there's generally a throne element in the king, which represents the seat of authority of that element. There's a lot of crowns in this, and the crown, whether they're different sizes, different weights, made of different items, like whether it's a metal or flowers or garland or whatever it is, that's meaning the same thing as that throne. It's the throne is the authority, but the crown is like the symbol of the mastery of that element. Generally, I realized I was talking about the kings actually holding the representative of the suit in their hand, but then I looked at the cards, they're all holding the suit in their hands. They're all holding swords, cups, wands, and pentacles. But that is to show the mastery. And it's not the control of the cup or the wand, it's the mastery of it, is to get a feeling of the idea of it and the objective of it. But how they're holding it, in what manner they're holding it, could also project an energy to us as the viewer. And the kings generally are held in a fashion of mastery, of authority, of more aged time and wisdom with those elements. Queens generally have a very calm background. The clouds are soft, the waters are generally soft, the environments are generally calm, much more lush and serene. There's animals in almost all of the queens that we're looking at today in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck and the Secrets of the Witch's Garden. And to have that animal in there, to me, is nurturing, tending, the compassion, and the taking care of something outside of yourself. And that's that queen energy. For the knights, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, they're on horseback. And then in my deck, they're in different conveyances of speed, whether it's a horse or whether it's their own wings or whether it's fire. And this is the energy and the momentum and the drive that the knights have. And there's also, I read somewhere that the knights tend to hold the object like they're taking it somewhere, or like it's a message, or they're conveying it forward, which makes sense too, that they're transporting the cup, they're transporting the pentacle. The pages, I don't have a favorite court card, but sometimes when I think about the pages, like sometimes I feel like I'm very much in my page energy, and they've got like fancy clothes, dreamy expression. They're not really in a rush to go anywhere. Sometimes they're just kind of like loitering about, looking at stuff and thinking about stuff. And I'm like, I'm a page in a lot of ways sometimes. That there's a softness and a dreaminess about them. And I mean, we're talking very generally about the energy of these cards. I'm just going to keep going, Nicole. I've got more notes. I've got two themes.
I'm listening. I'm learning.
I know. Quickly, two themes. Are the court cards actual people in your life? The kings represent an older yang or older masculine energy, not a older male. It can be, but it doesn't have to be, but an older, like a masculine yang energy, a more authoritative figure, more learned. Plenty of college professors could be biologically female but have the masculine energy of projecting information and of holding information and having authority on information. Queens could be the older feminine or yin energy. This is somebody who might have influence over you. There's a difference between authority and influence. Possibly influential person that has a stored wisdom and maturity and inner mastery and emotional and mental authority, not, like societal authority. Knights, I see knights, and this is a young masculine energy, a young yang energy. Whenever I think about knights, I think about these are my contemporaries. Nicole and I are knights together. That's how I see it. These are my contemporaries. These are my companions. These are people who are doing the same kind of things as me. And it doesn't have to do necessarily with age. It's more along where we are in our growing as podcasters. That makes us knights together at the same time. We're achieving goals together. But it also represents action and movement, and like I said, drive. But it could be people who are right around where you are in your journey. Pages is a young feminine, a young yin energy. And this might be, now you might be the page, or you might have a page energy next to you. And this might be someone who's coming to you for information. It's coming to you to want to know more. Like when I was a yoga teacher, it didn't matter how old or young the student was. If they were coming to me asking me for more information about yoga or asking me for more information about teacher training, that could be that page energy. They're the beginner and I was more, learned in that particular field. And it's curiosity. The page is a curious person, an initial learner, and like in the beginning phases of something, so that these could be people in those places that are in your world or in your orbit. And the second theme, because there's many themes, I'm only covering these two, is that the court cards as timekeepers. Freebird on forum.thetarot.guru said that they read the court cards as timing indicators. They learned this from an old carnival reader years ago. Pages means where it's placed in your spread, days, the messages are coming in days. It's the beginning, it's the conception. Nights means that it's weeks away, or weeks to materializing, or weeks till you get an answer to that question. And that's the developmental stage. Queens, months. Just this is the nurturing, and this is also the queen energy is also the birth and the labor. And then finally, your king time is a season. This could be a completion of cycles, or a cycle has to complete before you get your information, or you get the next piece of the question that you asked your tarot cards is seasons away. And this could be completion, like I said, but also this is also the raising and the rearing of the idea. So timekeeping, pages, days, nights, weeks, queens, month, kings, seasons. That could be a spring, that could be a year, but that's an interesting way to look at them as well, as you're looking at the cards and where they fall in your readings, listeners.
So I started my notes section summarizing sort of where we've been and where we're going in this episode. And it's going to sound kind of basic, but that's okay. We're doing it anyway. So if we think back to our first episode of season 2, when we kind of introduced the tarot, we talked about how the 22 major arcana cards are numbered from 0 through 21. And these series of cards convey the hero's journey, cycles, patterns, influences, shifts, and turning points throughout our lives and our spiritual evolution. They also tap into archetypes and thematic energies, and they suggest that something major is happening. The major arcana. And then for the minor arcana cards, we have the numbered cards plus the court cards, which is what this episode is introducing. Like Christina said, we're going to do each suit of the court cards later on. The minor arcana aims to address the many possible ways to see and deal with a situation. So these are kind of the more day-to-day energies, speaking more so to specific events and felt experiences. We can recall one of our first episodes from this season, also when we talked about decans, that each of the 36 numbered cards, with the exception of the 4 aces, rules one 10-degree decan of the zodiac. The 4 aces represent the spirit of each of the 4 elements. So those are kind of separate and do not rule a 10-degree decan. So now for the court cards. Christina pretty much hit on a lot of this, but in summary, the court cards can be thought of in many different ways, as we just heard. Timing, they can be thought of as social roles, stages of a process, levels of maturity, even generations. You can think of older generations to younger generations. And one thing with the court cards, their hierarchy and gender can definitely be problematic. I know
Mm-hmm.
that that is something we are hyper aware of. And one thing that I think we are striving to do is asking the question, how can we break out of the colonizer hierarchy and these gendered representations?
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, that means sort of leaning into the energies, the yin and the yang, and not thinking about them super literally.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Christina did, some of the I pulled the renamed court cards from my Medicine Woman tarot deck. I feel like that deck does a pretty good job with decolonizing and offering gender neutral alternatives.
Nice.
So I'm going to be sharing those here in just a moment. So what I wrote in my notes next was, how or what about these cards can we work with? What about these cards can we work with, since we're trying to break out of this hierarchy and gendered language? So for the pages, we can think about the pages as the novice, the apprentice, having inexperience, but also willingness,
Mm-hmm.
a willingness to explore and learn and experiment. The Medicine Woman Tarot names this series of cards the apprentice, and that is very straightforward, I think. The Knights, we can think about the energy of passion and enthusiasm, growth and advancement, development, questing, momentum, maybe a little impulsive as well. In the Medicine Woman Tarot, this has been renamed Totem. And there's a lot of definitions for totem. The one that stuck out to me, two actually, the first being a sign, a symbol, or an example, a guiding principle or value, a guardian spirit, ancestor, or protector that usually an entire group
Hmm.
associates itself with. For queens, the energy of caring, nurturing, creativity, self sufficiency, independence. In the Medicine Woman Tarot, these cards are called Lodge. And Lodge, to me, evokes a sense of shelter and nurturance. And it's a very old word, it's been around since 1290.
Mm.
Kings, authority, leadership, responsibility, consolidated power, and control. In the Medicine Woman Tarot, this is exemplar, which, of course, I looked up the definition. An admired person or thing that is considered an example that deserves to be copied or imitated.
Okay. So it's an example. Like I'm thinking of like something is excellent, but this is example. Does that make
Maybe
sense?
like maybe it's like the most excellent example
Yes.
that
Yeah.
you want to use as your template, your what you're going to copy and emulate.
Exemplar. Okay, I got it. I don't know if I've ever used that word. So I'm like, and my first thought is that it means excellent, but what it means is excellent example.
Mm-hmm. If you go onto the Oxford English Dictionary, I almost did this, but I didn't, and now I wish I did. It will tell you the number of uses in like literature, for example. Lodge was like it's used very, very frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And exemplar, not so much. So, not a super common word. All right. So now we're kind of returning to the decans. We're kind of going back into that train of thought. And as we go through the minor arcana, that's something we cover in each of those podcasts, the decan chart. There's a way that we can layer the court cards onto this wheel and associate a court card with each decan. And this is how it works. And this is from the Chicken Kabbalah that I read way back when we did our podcast on the Kabbalah. So the author writes, "It is the cosmic duty of the elements to mix with each other and knit creation together. Therefore, instead of ruling from 0 degrees to 0 degrees of each zodiac sign, the kings, queens, and knights rule from 20 degrees of one sign to 20 degrees of the next. So that with the 5, 6, and 7 of swords, Aquarius 1, 2, and 3, if we link a court card to them, we have the Knight of Swords for Aquarius 1, 5 of Swords, Knight of Swords also for the 6 of Swords, but for the 7 of Swords, because now we're at 20 degrees of Aquarius, that court card is the King of Cups. And the King of Cups is linked to the 8 of Cups for Pisces 1, the 9 of Cups for Pisces 2, and then for the 10 of Cups, when the sun is at 20 degrees of Pisces, that is what triggers the next court card to be linked, and that's the Queen of Wands.
And you've got a beautiful chart, like a picture from your book that was very helpful for me for wrapping my head around this. That picture is really good.
Yes, so I plan on including the picture that Christina's talking about is from the Chicken Kabbalah, and then it's helpful for me, but then I also made it into a table. And all I did was use our decan charts, and I just added a column and added the court card.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll include that example table as well.
I absolutely love that quote. It's the cosmic duty of the elements to mix with each other and knit creation together. And that's why when I was going through, like, this is air in the suit of water and this is cardinal earth, like, it's like, that's why this is like this, because the elements are supposed to knit together and blend together and balance off each other. We're supposed to be mixing together. But that's such a good, it's the cosmic duty of the elements to mix with each other.
So in this example, there was a knight, a king, and a queen. So what about the pages? And the Chicken Kabbalah has an answer for the pages. And the short answer, I think, is they're ruling the seasons. But according to the Chicken Kabbalah, he writes, the pages are just as much a defining key to their suit as the ace is. The ace and the page are like the alpha and the omega of their suit. I liked that.
Well, that's a nice way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, from one end to the other end, the alpha to the omega. Never mind. That's some good quotes. Some good quotes right there.
Yes. Okay. I did not compare this section to what you wrote, and I'm really curious if it syncs up or if my brain just went somewhere, and not that it's right or wrong, but I'm curious if it's going to sync or diverge. So this is what I saw because I filled out the rest of the Decan chart and the corresponding court cards. And so I noticed a pattern. This is like, these are totally my words. And again, it could be totally off base. We'll see. So what I wrote here, if you look at the entire Decan chart, which I did, and the corresponding court cards, a pattern emerges. The queens correspond to the tens, the twos, and the threes in the minor arcana. That contains the cardinal cusp when the seasons are initiated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I like the validation. The knights correspond to the fours, the fives, and the sixes in the minor arcana, which contains the fixed cusp. And then the kings correspond to the 7, 8, and 9. That contain I think this might be where it diverges a little bit.
It does.
And it's a pattern that was so obvious and undeniable to me that I had to write it down. So the 7, 8, and 9 in the minor arcana correspond to the kings. That's just how it happens. That contains the mutable cusp. And so it made me reflect back to our 55th episode about the aces and the elementals. And there was one of my guidebooks that explained the kings as consolidating the other three suits and sort of coalescing all the elementals together. There was this sense of sort of blending. And in my opinion, I can follow that train of thought. It makes sense to me. It makes sense that the kings would have an element of being adaptive because they have coalesced all the elements and all the suits. So it's a school of thought, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me. And if it doesn't resonate with you, that's cool.
Yeah.
But like I said, I mean, it was a pattern that was quite obvious.
And just put it out there, share it, because that's someone will see it the same way that you do. And the one that I'm reading, the court cards change with the whole zodiac sign. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's just a little different.
And I think I have most of the Decan chart done with the court cards. So I can put it in the Substack and people can look at it and see if they see the same pattern.
Yeah. But that's why there's so many books. That's why there's so many different interpretations. That's why there's hundreds, if not thousands, of tarot cards, is that we all have different points of view and we all discover new ways to relate to this information and to this energy. And I say, put it out there. Make up something new. Figure out something new. Put out something new out into the world. Or you discover that it's not new at all. Somebody actually did that. And then suddenly they're like, hey, I did that 5 years ago. And you're like, oh, okay. Like, that happens too.
I do have another table. I'm not necessarily going to read through it though. I think it's like going to be perfect for Substack. But what I did was just kind of linked the zodiac signs to, like, Leo, for example, is linked to the 5, 6, and 7 of Wands. The mode is fixed. It's the 5th house, element fire, suit Wands. I do have the season and the wheel of the year in here too. The name of the full moon and then what sign the full moon is in.
Oh. Only difference is that the book I used, that whole season would be one card, and what you were looking at, the cards are are a little off. Like when you post your other picture, the King of Wands and the Queen of Pentacles are both in Sagittarius energy. Do you know what I mean? By one decan. And that's not that different than one court card being in one zodiac sign. I see it. It makes sense to me.
And that's all I have.
Oh, I like this chart a lot because it has the full moons on it. That's so interesting that the aces and the pages are like outside of all these charts and tables. Do you know what I mean? That they do have a different role to play.
The aces are the spirit of the element. It would be considered the alpha. And then the pages are, in the book I read, the pages were associated with sphere 10, Malkuth. So literal like Earth, as in the planet we live on, and like our day-to-day reality. So in that sense, it makes sense to me why they're called the Alpha and Omega and why they are sort of outside of ruling decans. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it as a concept.
I didn't really I knew the pages were outside of the court cards, the knight, the king, and the queen. They each have a zodiac sign. The pages don't. They have the season. And I knew that about the aces, but I didn't put that together until right now when you said that the pages and the aces are kind of over, outside, and through. We have two groups of court cards. We have the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. This is your set. The pictures and the illustrations on your set are so much clearer than mine. I can see so much more detail on your cards than I can on my cards. I don't know why that is.
I bought the like illuminated Rider-Waite-Smith.
You can see the individual salamanders, and you could see the individual grapes and all the illustrations on the thrones. The King of Swords has butterflies on his throne, and I can see that clearly on your deck. But when I'm looking at my card, I can't. It just doesn't. It's just not clear. I love how yellow the Pentacles court cards are. How yellow and green they are.
Mm-hmm.
And the swords, it just makes me feel cold when I look at those. Aren't they? Don't they look chilly? Even the cups cards are a little cold. All that blue and water. It's like if I was going to those places, I would need a jacket.
Yeah.
I mean, like temperature cold. Maybe also like emotionally, no, not emotionally cold, but they look cold because of the blue sky. And the clothing of the pages, this is specifically what I was talking about, listeners, is how these pages are dressed in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. I just love it. And then in the Secrets of the Witch's Garden, it's a very, very earthy and a little more mystical.
I was definitely surprised at how, so by contrast, I guess, The Secrets of the Witch's Garden, it's very clear just by a glance the element in the suit. It's very color coded.
Mm-hmm.
And I was surprised in a way by the Rider-Waite-Smith deck that there's not as much of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like Christina said, the swords and the cups, there's a lot of blue.
Well, in the Rider-Waite-Smith, the fire family all have salamanders, and the queen has a sunflower, but there's no like fire or very red, or like there's no fire in it. There's no like that heat. The cards actually don't feel very warm to me even. Do you know what I'm saying? So in the Rider-Waite-Smith, she's using really color and symbology to relay the message of the element more than The Secret of the Witch's Garden, which is using so many other features as far as imagery, as far as clothing, background, color, what the characters are holding, where they're located, a lot more background information than in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. But there are some clear echoes, like the Black Cat for the Queen of Wands.
And we'll post these.
Yeah.
It's a lot to take in.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do each individual court, we can compare a little bit more.
And I was talking Nicole into doing all the next season, that we're going to do all the kings when we do the archetypes, and then we're going to do all the queens when we do the queen archetype, but more cards to follow even in season 3 and beyond. But then we could, when we do the archetypes, we can do the tarot cards that we think go with that. So we might do all the kings together and see what all that energy has in common, besides their thrones and their crowns and their scepters. Are you ready for the message from the universe? As if I haven't talked enough on this podcast with all my lists and notes. I'm using the Literary Witches Oracle written by Tasia Kitezakaya and illustrated by Kathy Haran. I'm going to have one card for all of us, and then you're going to choose 1, 2, or 3. And this is a very, very quick read on these cards. The card for all of us is the literary witch, the reimagined historical character, or the reimagined real historical author of Mary Shelley. Represents loss, the cycle of life, transitions, and attachment. Frankenstein isn't the garish zombie story we've seen in pop culture. Inspired by scientific discussions of the day, and the complex feelings Mary Shelley had about parenting. Frankenstein is a painful tale about the creation of life and what happens to shunned, abandoned children. Her life was as harrowing as her famous novel. Her great losses of mother, feminist Mary Wollstonecraft, husband, poet Percy Bysshe Shelley, and 3 children tried her ideals of domestic harmony. Mary Shelley. And then there's 3 cards that we choose, 1, 2, or 3, which are the tools or the elements. Card 1 is apple for the senses, hunger, and sex. Card 2 is the cauldron for creativity, the rich broth, and surprising yourself. And card 4 is the wolf, the self without others, a calling, and the great expanse. This wolf wanted to be heard today. It came out 3 times when I was just kind of like moving cards around, and then initially picked up the card. And then I was like, okay, now I'm going to draw the cards. And there she was. The wolf came right back out.
The third card, right after the 333 portal and eclipse, full moon.
And the story about Mary Shelley, I listened to a podcast about her, and such a fascinating character. And I really like the author's interpretation of using these women as oracle cards, as lessons about our modern lives. But that's it. Thank you, universe.
Thank you, universe. Next week we are back with the Emperor because we are starting Aries season, the start of the zodiacal year.
Happy New Year!
Until then, listeners, thank you. We love you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode. The Radical Podcast is created and produced by Nicole and Christina.
Music by Van Horton. His Instagram is Van Horton Music. Stay in touch with us at linktr.ee/theradicalpodnc.